You're standing in line, heart rate climbing. You rehearsed everything on the flight over, but now your mind is completely blank. The officer calls you forward, and the very first question catches you off guard. You hesitate. That hesitation just cost you hours in a secondary inspection room and possibly your entire trip. This is exactly why we're here today. Welcome back. If you travel internationally even once a year, this video could genuinely save you from one of the most stressful experiences imaginable. We're breaking down the 10 customs and immigration questions you absolutely must answer correctly in 2026. Why officers ask them, what the wrong answers sound like, and exactly what you should say instead. Stick around because question number 7 trips up even the most experienced travelers, and most people don't realize they're getting it wrong until it's too late. Let's start with something fundamental. Customs and immigration officers are not just checking your paperwork. They are trained behavioral analysts. They watch your eyes, your posture, your breathing pattern, and the tiny micro-expressions that flicker across your face before you've even opened your mouth. Every question they ask has a purpose behind it, and sometimes that purpose has nothing to do with the literal answer. They're testing your consistency, your confidence, and your honesty. Knowing this changes everything about how you prepare. Question number 1 is the classic opener. What is the purpose of your visit? Sounds simple, right? Wrong. This is where people collapse almost immediately. The mistake most travelers make is being vague. They say things like tourism or just visiting, and when the officer follows up with something more specific, they stumble. Your answer needs to be concise, specific, and natural. If you're visiting a city for leisure, name the city. Mention 1 or 2 things you actually plan to do. Say something like, I'm here for a week to explore the museums and do some hiking in the national park. That level of detail signals you've actually planned this trip and aren't improvising your story on the spot. Question number 2 hits right after. Where will you be staying? Do not say I don't know yet or a hotel, but I haven't booked it. Even if those things are true, those answers raise red flags. Officers expect you to have accommodations sorted before you arrive. If you genuinely haven't booked anything because you're a flexible traveler, have a backup answer ready. Know the name of a hostel or hotel in the area where you're headed. Have it written down or saved in your phone. If you're staying with a friend or family member, give their full name and address, not just their first name, and some street you vaguely remember. Question number 3 is about duration. How long are you planning to stay? Your answer here must match your visa or entry permission, and it must align with what you just said about your plans. If you said you're on a quick vacation, but you're requesting the maximum allowed stay, that inconsistency will prompt more questions. Be realistic. If your visa allows 90 days, but you're only staying 10, say 10 days, and explain briefly what you're doing in those 10 days. Consistency across all your answers is the backbone of a smooth crossing. Now here's the question that makes people nervous even when they have absolutely nothing to hide. Question number 4. Do you have anything to declare? In 2026, customs declarations have gotten more nuanced because regulations keep evolving, and what qualifies as declarable varies significantly between countries. The general rule is this: when in doubt, declare it. Declaring something you didn't need to declare costs you nothing but a few extra seconds. Not declaring something you should have declared can cost you a fine, confiscation of your goods, or worse, a flag on your record that affects every future border crossing. Cash over certain thresholds, food items, commercial quantities of goods, gifts over specific values, these all typically need to be declared. Know the rules of the specific country you're entering before you arrive. Question number 5 is where business travelers get tripped up constantly. Are you traveling for business or pleasure? This sounds like a simple binary choice, but it's loaded. If you are doing any work-related activity during your trip, even attending a single conference or meeting, you need to understand the visa rules for that country. In many destinations, working without a work visa or business visa is a violation. even if your employer is based elsewhere and paying you in another currency. The short answer is, never say business if your visa category doesn't cover business activities. Know what your visa permits before you answer this question. We're halfway through, and I want to pause on something important. These questions aren't designed to trap innocent people. They're designed to identify inconsistencies. If you're telling the truth and you've done your homework about your own trip, most of these questions become effortless. The problem arises when people haven't thought through the details of their own journey, and that unpreparedness reads as suspicious. So the best preparation is genuine preparation. Know your itinerary. Know your accommodation. Know how much money you have and what you're carrying. Question number 6 is becoming increasingly common in 2026 as border security technologies have advanced. Can I see your return or onward ticket? This is essentially the officer verifying that you have a plan to leave. If you're entering on a tourist visa, you are expected to leave before it expires. A return ticket is your evidence of that intention. If you're a digital nomad or long-term traveler who books onward travel as you go, this question can create problems. The solution is simple. Either book a refundable or flexible return ticket before you arrive, or use a flight reservation service that provides a legitimate booking confirmation without requiring full payment upfront. Either way, have something to show. Question number 7. This is the one I promised you would be surprising. Do you know anyone in this country? People answer this casually without realizing the implications. If you say no, but the officer has already seen communication on your phone during a device inspection, or if your accommodation address belongs to a person rather than a hotel, that contradiction is a serious problem. Be honest and specific. If you have a friend here but you're not staying with them, say that. If you have a business contact but this is a tourist visit, be transparent about that distinction. The truthful and detailed answer is almost always the right answer. Question number 8 relates to finances. Do you have sufficient funds to support yourself during your stay? Some countries have minimum financial requirements for entry, and officers can and do ask about this. Know the approximate expectation for the country you're visiting. Have access to funds you can demonstrate if asked. This might mean showing a bank statement, having a credit card available, or knowing roughly how much cash you're carrying. Saying I have a credit card is usually acceptable, but knowing approximately what your spending plan is for the trip shows preparedness and adds credibility to everything else you've said. Question number 9 is one that catches first-time visitors off guard. Have you visited this country before, and if so, when and why? This seems harmless until you realize officers can often verify this through your passport stamps, biometric records, or linked visa databases. In 2026, border data sharing between allied countries has expanded considerably. If you've visited before, say so. If you've had any previous immigration issues, overstays, or visa complications in the past, understand that this information may already be visible to the officer. Coming in with a rehearsed denial of something they can already see on their screen is exactly the kind of inconsistency that escalates a routine check into something far more serious. Question number 10 is one that seems to come out of nowhere. What do you do for work? The reason this matters is that it helps officers assess the plausibility of your trip. A freelance graphic designer spending 3 weeks in Southeast Asia makes intuitive sense. Someone claiming to be a factory worker on minimum wage who somehow has a 6-week first-class vacation planned might raise eyebrows, not because it's impossible, but because the officer needs the story to be coherent. Be honest about your occupation and be prepared for a natural follow-up question. If your job situation is complicated, find the simplest, truthful way to describe it. Now let's talk about the behaviors that actually matter as much as the words. Eye contact is not about staring someone down. It's about engaging naturally with the person asking you questions. Looking away constantly signals discomfort. Having your answers memorized so rigidly that you sound like you're reciting a script is just as suspicious as not knowing your answers at all. The goal is confident familiarity with your own trip. Your phone is another piece of evidence. In many countries, border agents have the authority to request access to your device. Having your hotel confirmation, your return ticket, and your travel itinerary easily accessible on your phone is not just convenient, it's strategic. It shows you're organized and that your stated plans have documentation behind them. One of the most overlooked mistakes people make at customs and immigration is volunteering information that wasn't asked for. The question was, where are you staying? The answer is the name and address of your accommodation. It is not a 10-minute monologue about your entire travel history, your complicated relationship with the country, and your thoughts on the local food scene. Answer what was asked. Be direct. Let the officer ask follow-up questions if they need more. Experienced travelers know that brevity paired with confidence is the combination that moves you through the line efficiently. Let's talk about 2026 specific changes, because the landscape has genuinely shifted. Biometric verification is now standard entry procedure at a growing number of major airports and land borders worldwide. Facial recognition, fingerprint scanning, and digital passport integration mean that your travel history is more comprehensively tracked than it was even 2 or 3 years ago. This cuts both ways. If you have a clean travel record, these systems often expedite your processing. If there are flags in your history, they surface quickly. The key takeaway here is that the era of hoping a previous overstay or entry issue simply wasn't recorded is essentially over. Transparency about your history is not just the ethical choice, it's the strategically sound one. Many countries have also updated their declaration thresholds and prohibited items lists heading into 2026. If you're traveling with supplements, certain electronics, large amounts of seeds, or any medications that might be controlled substances in your destination country, do your research before you land. A quick 30-minute search before your trip could prevent a situation that derails your entire journey and follows you in official records for years afterward. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything about crossing borders. Most officers want to wave you through. Processing you quickly is literally their job goal. They are not looking for reasons to detain you. They are looking for reasons not to. Give them those reasons. Be organized. Be honest. Be concise. Have your documentation accessible. Know your own trip. These are not complicated demands. They are the baseline of prepared travel. If you do get pulled into secondary inspection, stay calm. Secondary inspection is not an accusation of wrongdoing. It's an additional verification step that happens for a wide variety of reasons, including random selection. Answer questions truthfully. Ask for clarification if something is unclear. And remember that you have the right to remain calm and respectful throughout the process, regardless of where you are traveling. Here's your action plan before your next international trip. Print or screenshot your hotel confirmation. Save your return ticket somewhere easily accessible. Research the declaration requirements of your destination. Know roughly how much money you're carrying and have access to. Look up whether your planned activities are permitted under your visa category. And take 5 minutes to mentally walk through your itinerary so that when someone asks you what you're doing in their country, the answer comes naturally. Travel in 2026 is more connected, more tracked, and more scrutinized than ever before. But it's also more accessible and more rewarding than ever before for travelers who show up prepared. The difference between a stressful border crossing and a smooth one almost always comes down to preparation and honesty. 2 things that are completely within your control. If this helped you, drop a comment below with the destination you're headed to next. I read every single one of them. Hit that like button if you want the YouTube algorithm to share this with other travelers who could use it, and subscribe because we're covering everything from visa changes to travel document mistakes every single week. Safe travels, and I'll see you in the next one.